Take it in and look at everything we see right now, because when that deadline hits at 6 p.m., when all the frenzy begins, some of these names might find some new logos and new homes. Myles Turner, the top dog on the list. A lot of names that we saw in the postseason. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, of course, his cousin went on to win a ring. Malik Beasley, others, and Al Horford there. Brook Lopez and Ty Jerome looking for new homes. Only two restricted this year. You got Kuminga and Giddey. Others, it's a free-for-all. All right, John Gonzales still here with us to give us a skinny on some hoopers that may be looking for some new homes or maybe running it back with their original teams. Let's start there with the big man in Turner. Played a big role. We already know that. He was a shot and rim protector for the Pacers on to that Game 7, or Game 6, I should say, there with OKC. Your thoughts on maybe him returning back to Indy or maybe somewhere else?
Yeah, he's going to come back to Indy. I mean, he's been linked, Brandon, to moving on from Indianapolis for the last 10 years. He's been in the NBA that long, for that long. Everybody's been talking about, well, when are they going to move on from Myles Turner? And always the Lakers are mentioned as a destination. Obviously, the Lakers need a center. But the Pacers understand how valuable Myles Turner is to them as a rim protector and a three-point shooter. His last deal was 2 for $40 million. Naz Reid just got 5 for $125. I think that's probably the ballpark that Myles Turner is seeking here. Something maybe even slightly increase from that, because he was a critical piece of this Pacers team, and without Tyrese Halliburton next year, they're going to need even more from Myles Turner, so I don't anticipate him going anywhere. The
longest tenure Pacer, and that will not change there, according to our John Gonzales. When it comes to Jonathan Kuminga, this is a guy that we've said for years that he can be a perennial all-star, a scoring champ, but we just never saw that in Golden State, given, of course, their roster. Will this be the year he moves on, or is he going to run it back here?
Yeah, this one's more interesting, right? Because he's a restricted free agent. He was in and out of the rotation for Steve Kerr. They did this two timelines thing in Golden State where they tried to develop Jonathan Kuminga at the same time as trying to win a championship. That was an utter disaster. Once they got Jimmy Butler, he fell out of the rotation because Steve Kerr rightly said, hey, look, I don't love the spacing with Jimmy Butler on the floor alongside Draymond Green, alongside Jonathan Kuminga, which meant that Jonathan Kuminga's minutes were limited. And then when Steph got hurt during the postseason, they needed Jonathan Kuminga to step forward. And he showed some flashes, but I think this is a situation that's probably a sign and trade. Maybe he ends up with the Heat. The Bulls are an interesting destination because they've got Nickeil Alexander-Walker on the books for reasons surpassing understanding, and the Golden State Warriors obviously are looking for a center. Quentin Post, thank you for your help. You'd be much better served coming off the bench rather than having starters minutes, so maybe there's something to work out there. But I'd be really surprised if Jonathan Kuminga remains on this roster moving forward.
I feel like we've seen him for 6 years. He's only 22, so he has a whole career, maybe 10 or 12 years, based on what we've seen so far. Elsewhere in Chicago, Josh Giddey, he had a little bit in Chicago where the last 2 months or so, we really saw him kind of kick it up a gear. He's also a restricted free agent, but thoughts on his future?
Yeah, Josh Giddey, like the Bulls in general, Brandon, were kind of fun over the last 2 months. I have a friend who's a Bulls fan, and I was asking him about it, and I was saying, like, you know, I'm still kind of not sold on their roster building, and he was like, who cares? They're fun to watch finally. Josh Giddey is a part of that. Now, he looked good alongside Kobe White. He looked good alongside Modest Buzelis, but he's looking for something like 5 for $150 million. Do you really want to commit that much to Josh Giddey? Now, this is the Bulls. They've made a lot of really curious decisions, up to and including trading Alex Caruso straight up to Oklahoma City in exchange for Josh Giddey and not getting any picks back. They just recently traded Lonzo Ball for Isaac Okoro and didn't get any picks back. They signed Patrick Williams to a deal for 5 for $90 million. I still noodling over that one doesn't make any sense. And as I mentioned, Nickeil Vucevic remains on the team. I don't understand that as well. So Josh Giddey, I don't anticipate that he's going to go anywhere. He's found a home in Chicago. It's kind of like a perfect marriage between, you know, he's fine, I guess, and a team that just absolutely loves him and looks at things, I think, a little bit differently than a lot of organizations in the NBA do.
Yeah, now with Lonzo gone, I guess more minutes, more opportunities there. We will see in Chicago. Over in Minnesota, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, we talked about in the last segment. Look, he was a household name during the postseason. Maybe the bad news is that Randall and Reed will be getting the bag, but safe to say he's a 3-and-D guy that will be in high demand.
Oh, high demand for sure, Brandon. He's coming off his best season in his career. He's 27 years old. He was a bench star for the Wolves. He was awesome during the playoffs when they made their second straight Western Conference Finals. The problem for the Wolves, they'd love to have him back, is they're really cap-strapped here. They ended up coming into this offseason looking at a pick 2 of 3 situation. Well, they picked Nas, who they gave 5 for $125, and Julius Randle, who they gave 3-year extension for $100 million with a player option. That leaves Nickeil Alexander as the odd man out, but it looks like he's been rumored to end up with the Atlanta Hawks, which is a really good landing spot for him, Brandon. All of a sudden, with Onsi Saleh, the new general manager in Atlanta, the Hawks, who had been a really poorly run organization, all of a sudden are starting to look like a really well-run organization. They land Kristaps Porzingis. They steal a draft pick from the Pelicans. I don't even know what Joe Dumars is doing down in New Orleans. And now all of a sudden, Nickeil Alexander-Walker could be a great get for them, slide him right into that non-taxpayer mid-level exception. And now the Hawks could be one of those plucky teams in the Eastern Conference that's like super up for grabs right now. Obviously, the Wolves would love to have Nickeil Alexander back, but if I'm NAW, man, I'm feeling good about that.
Yeah, say bye-bye. He's gone. He's gone. He's going to find a new home. Somebody that I guess is going to find a home at some point, DeAndre Ayton finalizing that buyout with Portland. I'm going to be honest, I did not watch Portland that much this season, but then again, looking at some of the highlights, I don't remember much of what he did since he was in Phoenix, but he did average a double-double in his first 7 seasons in the NBA. But what's his market realistically?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be one of those guys. There's a ton of teams looking for centers, and we'll start with the Lakers, who I think he would be a really good destination for, and I mentioned the Golden State Warriors. But he's going to be in that group along with Brook Lopez, Clint Capella, Al Horford, as an in-demand, either starting or, complimentary big. I think with the Lakers, if he ends up there, he would obviously be a starter. But yes, Portland had done a number of curious things, Brandon. You mentioned what they were doing last year. I was lobbying for them to tank. They decided not to. They're kind of plucky and fun, and they had this young core, but obviously DeAndre Ayton didn't fit into that because they've got Donovan Clingan. They had Robert Williams. Oh, by the way, they also drafted, everybody calls him Chinese Joker, Yang Hansen. There just wasn't room for DeAndre Ayton. I was clamoring for them to move on for him sooner than later. Turned out to be later. We'll see where he washes up, but I think that he could be a reclamation project, especially if he ends up in LA.
Meanwhile, his former teammate in Phoenix, CP3, he's now the man out in San Antonio because they're 3 deep after what we saw from the draft, and also last year acquiring De'Aaron Fox when it comes to PGs. Like, he's 40 years of age, but his value is more of that mentor role at this point of his career. Where can you see him heading?
Yeah, these last few stops, I keep waiting for Chris Paul to call it a career, Brandon, but he's been super useful, right? He served that mentor role when he was in Oklahoma City. He did it again in San Antonio, but San Antonio, obviously, the backcourt got super crowded. They have De'Aaron Fox now. They had the Rookie of the Year in Stephon Castle. They just drafted Dylan Harper. He's the on-mat out. But at 40 years old, he played all 82 games last year, Brandon, and averaged 28 minutes a game. So he's rumored to be reuniting with either the Suns or the Clippers. I think the Clippers is the better destination for him and also for the team. He could back up James Harden. Instead of playing 28 minutes a game, you'd be looking at 15 to 20 minutes a game of Chris Paul, who is one of the smartest players in NBA history. He just knows the way that he can sort of chess piece things around the board and also serve as a mentor, and you don't have to worry about him making mistakes on a team that's going to have designs about trying to make the postseason and do something once they get there in a loaded Western Conference. I think he'd be a great fit for the Clippers or really wherever he ends up. It's a remarkable career. It's still going, Brandon.
He's 40 years old, 82 games. He's a vegan. I'm just putting it out there. Everybody knows I'm a vegan here, but we do remarkable things. Elsewhere, Al Horford, he is not a vegan. I don't think he is, but he has been reliable for the Celtics. We saw in that championship run. He's still sneaky good when you need him, maybe a 20-10 guy. What's his market?
Yeah, same deal, right? I mean, there's going to be teams that are going to come and call and ask him what his situation is in the same way as DeAndre Ayton and Clint Capella and Brook Lopez. I'd be surprised if he moves on here. He's going to have some suitors. I mean, maybe the Lakers, maybe the Golden State Warriors. He just turned 39. He played 60 games last year. Our colleague at CBSSports.com, Sam Quinn, said that if he had a vote, he might have thought about Al Horford for all defense. I think that's a step too far, but he was good last year, especially with Kristaps Porzingis, who has had a ton of injuries being out a bunch. He was a really good replacement. I think the Celtics, who slash salary by moving on from Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday, are going to look at this situation and go, okay, we're not going to have Jason Tatum next year. We're not going to have Kristaps Porzingis. We're not going to have Drew Holiday. The center situation, our frontline situation, probably makes sense to pay Luke Cornett and Al Horford on a 1-year deal. Al just came off of 2 for $20, probably takes a pay cut, maybe gets a 1 with a team option on the second year, but Al Horford, much like Chris Paul, not going anywhere, has another year at least left in him.
We'll see what happens with him and others the closer we get to that 6 p.m. Appreciate, as always, John Gonzales giving us everything we need. As I mentioned, 6 p.m. tonight, free agency opens. You can talk to some guys now. Hey, look, summer leagues out in Cali and Utah later in July, 5th through 8th. The weekend's there. Then free agency signing period opens July 6th at 12:01 p.m. The phone lines will be busy. And then Vegas Summer League a couple weeks after that. Coming up, we're not done the association. How about Colin Sexton? Moving on from Utah to take his talents to Charlotte. Many calling this a head scratcher. We'll see what Avery Johnson thinks about this next.